Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day around here. It's a hell of a lot of fun doing what we get to do, especially when we do it live, and we have all kinds of cool people joining us. Paul Adamson, Tiago Santos, Robert Turner, Dope Bass, Dylan Mayhew, Spider-Man, Timberwolf, Adrian Leon, all kinds of great people. This rundown is going out to our buddy Music Mike Nation. He is new here, but he subscribed. There was a really good interview that he enjoyed with Dan Hay and said some kind things. Thank you, Music Mike Nation. This rundown is all yours. A whole bunch of new and old indie games are coming to the Nintendo Switch. Earlier today, Nintendo held a special Nindy showcase to unveil loads of new indie games for the system. Here are the ones that have us the most excited. First up, the 2012 stealth game Mark of the Ninja, yes, is coming to the Switch in a new remastered version with updated controls. I cannot wait for that. That arrives this spring. An even older indie game, the 2004 music-based PSP puzzler, Lumines is coming to the Switch as well. Great fit. It will have new HD graphics as well as support for both single and multiplayer. That also arrives this spring. Now, if you're looking for a new game, the tactical RPG, The Banner Saga 3, will launch on the Switch the same time it hits the PC and other consoles this summer. Alongside the new game, the first two Banner Saga titles will be released on the Switch as well. This is amazing. I thought Nintendo did a phenomenal job at GDC last year with their Nindy event, and clearly independent developers are having a lot of success on the Switch, and lots of cool titles are coming. Still waiting for yours, Brian, Shakedown Hawaii. Just a little plug out there for you guys. I want that game so bad. But yeah, super excited about all the indie stuff that keeps popping up on the Switch. The store, the eShop that Nintendo has for the Switch, inundated with lots of great, cool indie titles, and they're really, really fun to play on this system because you can carry it around with you, and that huge screen when you're walking around, awesome. And we're going to talk to an indie game developer today on the show in just a little bit. Jules Watsham is joining us to talk about Chicken Wiggle, his upcoming Switch title, but lots and lots of other games that he's been working on over the years, and he's got a couple on the Switch, but that comes after the rundown. Next up, the Dragon Ball franchise is fighting its way to smartphones. Bandai Namco has announced an all-new game called Dragon Ball Legends for iOS and Android devices. Unlike previous mobile games in the franchise, this one will offer real-time PvP combat with two different players on opposite sides of the globe able to battle each other without any lag. At least that's what the developers are promising, so hopefully they deliver. Like the recent console game, Dragon Ball FighterZ, the matches will be 3 versus 3, although the game will only support 2 human players, which means you'll each control up to 3 characters and switch them out and get into all kinds of cool Super Saiyan. Is it Saiyan, Blake, or is it Saiyan? Saiyan? Okay, I always get that wrong. Dragon Ball Legends arrives later this year. Mobile games, they're still percolating, still lots of cool stuff out there, and I've got more mobile news in a second. Let's talk about that right now. Speaking of mobile gaming, the two biggest heavyweights in the Battle Royale genre are continuing their battle on smartphones. The mobile version of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, first released last year in China and soft-launched earlier this month in Canada, is now available worldwide on iOS and Android devices. Unlike the PC version, this one is free to play, with users able to buy extra in-game items like clothing and gear with microtransactions. It is a mobile game after all. And if you're wondering why developers are rushing to create mobile ports of their games, this might shed some light on the matter. Battlegrounds' biggest rival, Fortnite Battle Royale, earned more than $1 million in its first 3 days. Since the game is free to play, mobile, obviously, it means that all that money was earned from in-game microtransactions. The mobile version of Fortnite is still technically in closed beta with the servers invite-only for now. A full release is expected soon. I heard that the closed beta of Fortnite Battle Royale was the #1 game on iTunes, which is crazy, or the #1 game for iOS. It hasn't even shipped, and it's huge. It's massive. This is going to be a very interesting battle to see these things. There was another big console game that was ported to iOS, and I checked it out and was suitably impressed. It's Grid, the Codemasters racing experience. They pretty much delivered most of what it feels like to drive and race around in that game on the console to the mobile screen, which is phenomenal. There's still lots and lots of really good choices on iOS. It's just been, or in mobile screens, they've just been inundated with all of these free-to-play match 3 games. And you know, when you download a free app and it's got ads embedded in it, and one of those ads is one of those terrible match 3 games, doesn't it just piss you right off? Drives me crazy every time I see that. Also, when I see a whole plane filled with people playing Candy Crush, that drives me insane. Okay, over to movies. More proof has come in that the DC movie universe is in serious trouble. Justice League has officially ended its box office run with $229 million domestically and $657 million worldwide, making it the lowest grossing film in the new DC movie universe. These numbers fall way short of the Warner Brothers' expectations, and it's especially bad when you consider that Justice League is an ensemble film with multiple heroes and not just 1 or 2 heroes. This once again shows that the diminishing box office returns of the new DC movies, with each film's bad reviews and negative word of mouth hurting the next one down the line. The outlier, of course, is last year's Wonder Woman, which did better than expected thanks to rave reviews and positive word of mouth. This means that DC and Warner Brothers can turn things around if they just start making better movies. Now, this is huge. This is a big deal. And, like I just said in my review of Justice League, I actually enjoyed the movie. I had a lot of fun with it once I could compartmentalize all of my initial shock at its sort of mediocrity, because it doesn't really aspire to, or it aspired to greatness, but it didn't hit that greatness. But it's still super fun, and the heroes are all kind of well represented in there. But you got to see it a couple times before you kind of know who everybody is and what they're doing, and you can sort of push aside all of the cheesy one-liners that kind of fall with a thud, like "What's your superpower? I'm rich." I freaking hate that line. But I think it's time for Warner Brothers and DC to wipe some of the slate clean. I think if there's any ambivalence, if there's any people that are involved in any of these projects, just like Joss Whedon stepping away from Batgirl, that's a good thing. Get them out of there. Let them move on. They have to be so fired up to deliver something incredible that honors these characters, but also something incredible to propel their career, like Patty Jenkins did with Wonder Woman. It's incredibly important that whoever holds the responsibility for DC movies going forward is trying to make the best movies they can possibly make. Not specific to superheroes, not specific to anything else, not trying to push all kinds of pieces of this huge juggernaut cinematic universe together. Just make excellent movies. And Wonder Woman proves that that's possible. And I want to see more like that. Justice League, it's a heartbreaker, man. At this point, I think I kind of want Ben Affleck to go away. And I'm sort of always back and forth with that guy. But he just hasn't come out as a champion for this. He is no Robert Downey Jr. He is no Chris Evans. He is not coming out front and center and just telling us how much he loves being Batman. He always has to put it on when he's ever being interviewed. He has to kind of rally his own internal troops to kind of say that he's having a great time. But screw all that. We need somebody that's going to be Batman and relish it, Henry Cavill, I think, is relishing being Superman. Gal Gadot, I think, is relishing being Wonder Woman. Everybody down the line needs to kind of present at that, and all the people behind the camera as well. All right, rant over on DC movies. Atari is getting back into the console business. The company has announced that their new retro console, first announced last year as the Atari Box, will now be called the Atari VCS and is hitting stores later this year. They've also unveiled 2 controllers, one inspired by the classic Atari joystick and another more modern one. The blend of old and new makes sense because the system itself will play classic Atari games as well as newer ones, although a specific list of titles hasn't been announced. Now, I am a diehard Atari fan. I've picked up many Atari systems in my life. I think back fondly on my Jaguar. I think back very fondly on my Lynx. I had good times with some of those Atari 2600 titles, and I had the Atari 400 and 800 computers. I am totally in a wait-and-see position on this Atari VCS. I was fired up for Ouya. All right. I think that this idea of, taking components and trying to figure out a different kind of price point and finding a new way in for getting your games, cool concept. If it's a great machine, there's room for more consoles, but it has to be a great machine. They can't half-ass it, like the that Sega Genesis thing that was released last year, which was trying to sort of ape the idea of the Nintendo Classic Edition. It has to be phenomenal, and the classic Atari stuff has to be curated so precisely. I played some classic Atari stuff as Let's Play and Chat on EP Live a few days ago, and there was a lot of dogs in that collection, and they made two video games that were available for PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, and there were a lot of dogs. And I think if they're going to release a new machine with that brand, which is still vital. It's still a cool brand. We loved it in Blade Runner, right? Everybody that noticed that the Atari brand was in there and knows what Atari is, like me, had a big smile on our face when we saw that on the big screen. There's still adoration for that brand, but you have to curate it very precisely, and you have to create those partnerships. And as we're seeing with Nintendo, they are working overtime to build partnerships that are reciprocal and good for the developers. And this thing has got an uphill battle. It's got to sort of break in, get some market share, and sort of also bring aboard a bunch of developers that are going to be very skeptical because of things like Ouya. So wait and see holding pattern. Maybe it's going to be amazing. But finally, we have some fantastic breaking news. Ubisoft has emerged victorious in their long battle with media conglomerate Vivendi. They've just announced that they've reached an agreement with Vivendi to buy back Vivendi's entire stake in Ubisoft, representing about 27% of Ubisoft's share capital. This means Vivendi's hostile takeover attempt of Ubisoft is officially over. Do we have any cheer sound effects? Hurrah! Woo! Everyone, up on your feet, cheering! Yay! This is such great news. I'm so happy for our friends at Ubisoft. That's not the only big news. Ubisoft was able to buy back their shares from Vivendi thanks to support from new investors, most notably Chinese gaming giant Tencent, who in about 5 years will own all the game companies around the world. So it's going to be very interesting. As part of the deal, Tencent has inked a publishing agreement with Ubisoft to publish Ubisoft games in China, which will open up the massive country to many Ubisoft titles for the first time. And man, are those folks going to have some very good times with some awesome Ubisoft games. This is just great news. I've been very concerned, especially because it's a family-run publisher, and there's no company like Ubisoft out there. These guys, the Guillemot brothers, were there at the beginning, and they built something enormous. I can't even wrap my head around what Ubisoft means as a company because they have offices everywhere and they make games everywhere. And it's just a fascinating, incredible story. But it's a family business. They're still running it like, with their blood, sweat, and tears. And there's ups and downs. It's a huge corporation. It's not perfect, but it's still a remarkable place. And they give us a lot of fantastic titles. And they make some mistakes, and they don't hit every one of their targets, but I think they swing for the fences a lot, and they bring us a lot of great stuff. And last year, their press conference was emotional. It was awesome. It was one of the most inspiring things I'd seen from E3. So very fired up. Good news. It's fantastic. But it's time to put the rundown to bed and move on with the show. Right now, let's take a look at this day in everything cool. Welcome to This Day and Everything Cool for March 20th. On this day in 1915, our understanding of the entire universe was changed. A young physicist named Albert Einstein published the general theory of relativity, outlining a new and more accurate way of understanding the relationship between matter, gravity, and time. Relativity basically postulates that gravity isn't a force as proposed by Isaac Newton. It's instead created when space itself curves around objects in the fourth dimension, which also creates ripples in time. It took a few years for the physics community to accept relativity, but it eventually changed science forever and opened the door for new advancements in pretty much every field. Disney probably wishes they could bend time and space to travel back to March 20th, 2012. That's when they released the science fiction movie John Carter, becoming one of the biggest box office bombs in history. The film spent literally decades in development hell, leading to an inflated budget of more than $300 million, but it only ended up earning about $285 million. When you factor in advertising costs and other lost revenue, Disney ended up taking an estimated $200 million write-off on the project. The failure of John Carter forced Disney to rethink rethink how they operate, releasing fewer original IPs and instead doubling down on less risky sequels and reboots of established franchises. They also bought Lucasfilm later that same year, so Star Wars has pretty much occupied their live-action science fiction plans ever since. On March 20th, 1997, one of the scariest game franchises explored new territory. Castlevania Symphony of the Night was released on the PlayStation 1 in Japan, with a Western release following later that year. It was the first game in the series released on the PlayStation, and although it used the same 2D side-scrolling format as the previous games, it used the extra power of the console to implement non-linear level design, with players able to explore and backtrack through a constantly changing castle. The non-linear design was compared to the Metroid games, leading to the term Metroidvania. Castlevania Symphony of the Night also demonstrated that 2D games could still be popular even as games were moving into the 3D era.
But enough talk! How about you?
We have got a fantastic guest today on EP Live, Jools Watsham, and I just learned how to say his name correctly for the first time, which is great. Runs a studio called Kuni II, and he has been a, can I say, renegade indie developer for a long time.
Oh, look out.
You may remember him from his days at Renegade Kid as well. Brought us great games like Zeo Drifter and Mutant Mudds, and Chicken Wiggle is one of his latest creations, but his career stretches back. Dementium, Moon, Bomb Monkey. That's just fun to say. Jules, welcome to EP Live, my friend.
Hey, Vic. Good to see you, man. Thanks,
dude. Good to see you. I first met you,
Nice.
I think you were working with Gathering of Developers, and we were doing a tour, and I think I interviewed you about, in Austin, Texas, about Dementium. Something for you guys really focused on the 3DS back in that day.
Yeah, that was Gamecock,
Oh,
right?
Gamecock. Oh, my God, yeah.
Yeah, because they published Dementium. It was Gathering of Developers, I think because they liked the acronym was God,
Yes.
you know, because they're cheeky like
Yeah.
that. And that morphed into Gamecock, and then that's morphed into Devolver Digital today.
Yes.
Great group of guys.
Amazing.
They're good friends. But yeah, no, that was great. It was in Austin. Had a nice backdrop of the river there in Austin. It was awesome when we met. Yeah,
How long have you been making games, Jules?
Over 25 years.
25 years. And you don't have a Texan
And I still like it.
accent. You don't sound like you're from Austin, Texas.
Right, no, it's more east Texas. Yeah, no, I'm from England originally.
And
yeah.
were you making games in England and made the move to this?
I was. Yeah, well, I started, actually, what's neat is my first job in the video game industry was on the other side. It was for a video game print magazine. This was before the internet, which is horrifying.
I don't
to
think
say.
anybody remembers paper anymore, Jules. I think we're screwed there.
This is pre-internet, pre-email. I sent I guess I mailed in my my written review to kind of get the job. Anyway, I was like 17. I walked in off the street and very cheekily asked if they were looking for anyone to hire anyone, and they probably like, wow, we have to give this at least a shot, because the goal on this 17-year-old is at least investigating. Yeah. I was very polite though. I wasn't like forceful, but I wrote some reviews of some of my favorite games.
What was the magazine?
The One. For the Amiga and the ST.
That's
yeah.
Great.
And my writing was awful. I can definitely say that. I did these reviews. They were terrible. I think one was like for Speedball 2. One was for Gods on the Amiga. Some classic games by the Bitmap Brothers. I sent them in, and they're like, all right, we can maybe do something here. And I was cheap and enthusiastic. Yes. I think that was the key there. So I worked there for a year.
The industry, and this was true for Electric Playground as well, when we were, just coming up, because we just created the show and started making the show, and we had to get to know everybody, and this was pre-internet and pre-Google Maps, so we were always late everywhere that we went because we were printing out maps and trying to find stuff, or actually had maps that we would buy at gas stations.
Right, actually, like the old school maps, exactly.
But
oh my gosh.
People in the business that's what they want, man. And I think they still want it, but back then especially, they want that fire, that love, that enthusiasm.
Totally. Because otherwise, why are you doing it, right? This isn't like a job. Yeah. This is a passion. If it's just a job, well, we should probably go somewhere else, because it's not going to work out for you. You come here, whatever facet of video games you're involved in, you're there because you love it, and that's. And then everyone's happy. You're happy.
It's very different, though, to write about games and talk about them from a perspective of a critic or a consumer or a fan than it is to actually sit down and make them. What was the decision? Like, when did you know that was going to be your calling?
You know what's weird? And my kiddos were asking me about that the other day, actually. And so I had to think about that. And what's interesting, like, did I grow up always wanting to make video games? And I was like, I did. But because at that time, and this was what? Let me think. Late 80s, early 90s, I guess, when I'm becoming a teenager or somewhere in there, I'm, like, how are video games made? Don't they just come from some magical factory somewhere? Do humans make them? Yes. I don't know. There's certainly no college courses, no one even talking about it. So it was very unattainable. I was like, yes, I want to make games. I was even doing it at home. I had a Commodore 60, I had a ZX Spectrum, I had a Commodore Amiga. The Commodore 64, then moved on to the Commodore Amiga, and then the Atari ST.
What's happening with our show today? It's like all these old brands. We got Amiga and Atari. What's happening?
I didn't have an Atari VCS in there though. So I had all these computers. So I was kind of getting in there, getting my hands dirty, making games. Not really anything worth talking about, but getting in there and trying to learn some of it, doing some artwork and stuff like that. I totally wanted to. But I never allowed myself to entertain the idea that could be possible. So that's not going to happen. I'll just go into graphic design or something like that, which I was more than happy to do. Nothing wrong with that. But I kind of stumbled into. I was doing actually graphic design college at the time in London when I then stumbled across EMAP Images, who made the print magazines that I had in my pocket at the time, and I was like, oh my gosh! And I pulled it out and got in and got a job eventually. But while I was there, I continued working on my art portfolio. Pixel art, which I'm still doing today and still love. And I remember I sent in my portfolio on a floppy 3.5-inch disc. It was my portfolio that I mailed in to the video game company, and I got a job from that, which is just crazy to think. And that was the sales curve or storm or whatever. And I think they grew into IDOS maybe eventually. I'm not sure.
Wow. That's awesome. And were you making those connections because you were working as a journalist? Were you starting to...
Exactly. I met one of the programmers came in and was showing us one of their games, and I was obviously asking everyone, hey, you guys hiring? And looking for any artists or whatever? And he's like, oh, maybe.
Tale. I can't tell you how many people I came up with as a journalist covering the business who are now like, running huge companies or making massive games. And,
that was the way you did it, basically, because there's no internet. So it's all word of mouth. It was all, I guess, newspapers and magazines. It was, you had to be quite a sleuth and quite on it to get anywhere. It was very different. It was fun.
I have the same kind of way of communicating around EP and why I wanted to make the TV show, right? Because when I was talking to TV executives getting the show off the ground, I would tell them that, like, nobody knows how these things get made, and that's what I want to do is go and find these people and put them in front of the camera so we can find out. Because when I was growing up, I thought people just pulled a lever and a new game popped out of the game machine.
Some magic factory somewhere. Exactly. People didn't make that. It came from the video game place. Exactly.
So you were in the UK. Were you in London or were different?
I was. Yeah, I was in London.
And then so it's not an easy thing to transition to game making, and it is also a difficult thing to transition from the UK to an American address. How did that all come together? You worked at a game studio out there for a while?
Yeah, it was the best way, because I was about 18 when I moved to. Oh, let me think now. I'm sorry, 19 when I moved to the States.
Oh, wow.
So I was 17 at the magazine, 18 at the first video game pixel pushing job, and then at 19 I then applied to Iguana UK. You probably remember Iguana from back in the day. So they had the UK office up in Middlesbrough. So I actually applied there, got the job, awesome, fully intending to move up to Middlesbrough to work up there. And then like, hey, we'll send you over to the States to train to our HQ for 3 months, and then you'll come back. And then, because I was young, I was 19, I was still learning, and I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Just send me over to California so I can train. Sure, okay. So I came over, and we just never talked about me going back, which is crazy.
That's awesome.
It's a great way for a 19-year-old, because I think if they said, hey, do you want to move to the States? That's a pretty heavy decision, pretty heavy question to answer. And I didn't actually ever have to answer that. They kind of tricked me into going over to California. That same year, actually, the company moved down to Texas, where I am now.
That's an amazing origin story. Like 17, you say, I'm going to go do this. 18, you're doing it. And 19, you're relocated and you're working for a company that became very, very prolific and then eventually started to...
Yeah, they were huge.
They became retro in a lot of ways as well, right?
Yeah. True. A lot of spin-offs, a lot of great spin-offs. Yeah. It was it was amazing. That was like, it was a good time, man. It was good stuff.
Spangenberg brothers?
Jeff Spangenberg.
Yeah. Cool.
He and his wife, Beth, ran it, basically.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so you started Iguana, and what were the games that you were working on at Iguana?
So let me think now. So there's Pirates of Darkwater, there was Aero,
Arrow the
there was
Acrobat
Side
for the Super
Pocket,
Nintendo?
Aero the Acrobat.
Amazing. Okay.
Yep, and Genesis. Yeah, I did a ghost anime in that. I remember I think it was a spinning ghost. Yeah, that was it. That was my like, oh, this is cool. I get to work on a fun game because I was kind of doing like stuff for like the Side Pocket, the pool game, which was fine, but not half as exciting as doing a platformer or adventure game, or whatever. But then I moved on to Pirates of Darkwater, which is like a platformer kind of based on the old cartoon show. Yeah, Oro the Acrobat, and then I became lead artist for Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel. So that was awesome.
Great.
So
that was
and that was for SNES
David
Genesis.
Siller, I think, right?
Yeah, the Sunsoft guys. Yeah,
terrific. And then he went off. Did he work on Maximo or something like that?
He did.
Yeah.
Yep, he did Maximo at Capcom.
Yeah, great people.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
I guess kind of trailblazing everything then. And then, so how long did you stay with Iguana then?
Iguana was bought by Acclaim at some point. Came Acclaim Studios Austin, and then I was there until the end. Man, they closed in 2004, and I was there right until the end. They had to literally close it for me to get out of there. I had
Josh Sway on the show the other day, and he was a Midway employee, and it just really struck me that these massive companies, they just go poof. That's why this Ubisoft news today is so good.
That is good.
Right?
Yeah, getting away from the anything, that's good for them.
Because honestly, that could have been the next big poof.
Exactly. They just consume them, squeeze them dry, and move on to the next thing. It's not good. Not what happened to Acclaim, but I guess that technically happened to Iguana.
Yeah, it did.
Acclaim just made too many mistakes. That was their problem. But Iguana was, they got bought out, which seemed attractive at the time.
Well, Acclaim was famous for one of the quotes, I think, that I don't know if this was ever officially acknowledged that it came from there, but somebody, I think it was from Acclaim, said we could put shit into a box and brand it properly and it would sell. And they tried that many times with their games.
They did. Remember BMX Triple X? What was going on with that? Dave Mirra and all that.
But it was also
awful.
factory, dude. Like there were so many games that came out of Acclaim.
Yeah.
Were you burning out when you worked there? Were you just like?
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's what sucks, really, because we had some amazing people. And obviously, Iguana was a great studio. That's why they were bought in the first place. And all the studios that were under the Acclaim umbrella were great people, good people doing the games for the right reasons. But Acclaim management, I don't know. It's hard to say exactly what happened, but, and it's always easy for me, who's making the games, looking up to the bosses and blaming them. But I think it was their fault. But, we're learning our craft, and we're fans of the industry and fans of the games, and we're kind of seeing things move and change. And, like one of the ways that Acclaim would kind of approach game development, and I remember we did this with Turok, what was it, 4 or 5, whatever the last one was, for them, for PS2. So I'm looking up there because I have framed pictures of the games. I think it was GameCube, PS2, kind of Xbox era. Anyway, that game and Vex, and they both turned out okay. But the beginning of the project was like, okay, this is how big the team's going to be, this is how many years it's going to take, and this is the budget, and it needs to score, a Metacritic or whatever it was at the time of 9 out of 10, and everyone will be great. It's like, that's okay, but and we were kind of getting a whiff of kind of like, let's do things a bit more intelligently. Let's spend 3 months creating a kick-ass prototype of an idea, and if that's awesome, great, let's go.
Nintendo
and
way.
Let's just exactly the Nintendo way. And if it's great, let's go and let's devote millions of dollars to it. Or if it's awful, let's destroy that and do it again until we've got something that's great and then run with it. And they're like, no, we're just going to commit to this thing and just make it work. And it's like, yeah, but what if it doesn't work? I guess
because you're building art and not just art from the perspective of the the pixels and the polygons, but the art of the whole experience. And it's not done by robots.
Reinventing the wheel. Yeah, every game is brand new. It's like you try and learn from the last one, but there's so much newness to every game you make. You're always walking new territory, even if it's a sequel. Even the Call of Duty people, they're always trying to outdo themselves on last time. It's never the same thing. It's always new and different, new risks, new challenges. So it's, you don't know. It's not a straight line. You don't know how it's going to end up. You know how you want it to end up, but it doesn't mean that's going to happen.
You can see you can see that companies like Nintendo, and I would say companies like Ubisoft, have got a real respect for that trial and error process.
Yeah.
And I would counter that even Activision, even though they sort of have really shrunk their catalog to specific titles that earn billions of dollars, they generally make really good games over there. EA, I think, is getting a lot of the fire right now. Do you think that Electronic Arts has kind of lost their sort of core way with the way that, you got to just let the art breathe a little bit before you start making these huge financial considerations?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar with a lot of EA stuff. I mean, I see their big sports games, obviously FEA or FIA as it's pronounced.
And then they do cool things
is a
like
step
that.
in a very good direction.
And A Way Out, which is coming out this week. I mean, I try to counter my criticisms, and I'm not I hate EA. EA has the target, much like Acclaim had the target, But I don't know if it's a disconnect from the executives and the creative people, because it's a creative business, right? You can't.
It's so hard for them to maneuver, though. I mean, for people like us, I mean, teams like us, we're so small and therefore so nimble, and we're able to move like that. If we say that needs to change, it's done. Yeah. That's it. We don't have to deal with anything else. But for them, that's tough. You have, and they do hire. I think there is definitely a percentage of the workforce at those big companies that are there for a job, there for a stable career, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that comes with a certain risk, And then there's another percentage of people that are there truly passionate, willing to just kill themselves for it, So, and then you have, so some people are just trying to please their boss. Some people are trying to do the right thing for the game. Then you have people who are in the boss positions who got there. Now they have more money, responsibility. Maybe they shouldn't be there, but they're qualified to be there, but they don't want to be there, want more money. It's tough, man. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there. So I
love your perspective.
And you're trying to make good games, and all that stuff's going on.
I love your perspective, though. Because you've worked with the big studios, and you've got friends and allies and colleagues all across the industry. Yeah. But you've not lost your enthusiasm. When I read your tweets, you play everything. You love Nintendo stuff, especially. I see how much you and I sure. I am that passionate, enthusiastic as well about this stuff. But I get fueled by that fire that you have, and also your creativity, the choices that you make. Tell me about the decision to run your own thing, because that is also not a very easy decision to do. I mean, it seems like it was partly thrust on you because the industry was changing, but you had to run your own thing, right?
Well, so in 2004, Acclaim closed, and let me think what happened. I probably tried to be independent. Oh, yeah, I was independent for a little while, just trying to freelance work, but certainly was not in a position to make my own company. So did some freelance work, and then ended up getting a really good job actually, at King's Isle. I was a producer for King's Isle, and that was on the Wizard 101 project. Okay. So I was there at the beginning of that company, and I helped hire and kind of mold the beginning of that team and that company, I guess, in some regard, with Greg Hargrove, my very good friend, business partner at Renegade Kid. We've been working and known each other for 10, 15 years, even prior to that. So we were working there, had good, cushy jobs, had no reason to rock the boat. But I had that desire, that fire in my belly for, probably about 10 years prior to that entire time, to just go independent, do my own thing. And I think some of that was fueled by working for other people at Acclaim, telling me what to do and how to make games. And I disagreed with them and tried to present new ideas, and they were never accepted. So that's a good experience to go through that, because it's like, I'm going to prove you wrong.
I always say,
even though you'll never know about it, at least I'll know.
I always say every shitty boss, you learn a lot from them, right? And then when you're given the opportunity to have any responsibility or any sort of,
you hold it with a bit of a different perspective, a bit more respect.
Yes.
And
never forget that,
definitely.
Right? Never forget how that shitty boss made you feel.
Yeah. So I definitely felt like I had something to prove. And I don't. Who does like bosses? I hate bosses. No one wants a boss. Horrible stuff. So when we start, so Greg and I were like, let's leave this cushy job. We have no good reason to leave. And that company's still going. They're very good. They're very stable, and that's great. And they're doing a good job. And they've done Pirates 101 and all kinds of good stuff. So good for them. So we left, and we're like, hey, let's make a survival horror FPS for the DS. Yeah, sounds like a great idea.
Oh yes, it was. I kept saying 3DS, but it was the first DS, wasn't it?
The first
Yes.
DS. So it was me and Greg. Greg being an amazing artist, me handling the game design, and then we're like, all right, we need a programmer then. And this is when the internet did exist. So we went on the forums and we posted for a programmer who could single-handedly handle a DS engine and a game. And we found one.
Dude.
Bob Ives, amazing guy.
So you guys were doing Atari 2600 team sizes in the era
Yeah.
of the DS.
Yeah, it was crazy. But we pulled it off, man. It's amazing. And Bob Ives was the programmer. Obviously incredibly talented. I mean, it was a situation where all of us were passionate and all of us firing on all cylinders. And we're like, hey, let's make this, bloody game for this kid-friendly, family-friendly, console. And see what happens, because no one else is doing it. I mean, the game runs at 60 frames a second. It really shouldn't exist.
It was so cool,
especially because 3 people made it, and crazy. I mean, we hired a few contractors to fill in the gaps and do stuff, of course, but the meat of the team was there.
Well, it was also something that you were talking about Dementium here for the Nintendo DS. It was also something that was very. It's like one of those games that comes out for the Nintendo platform. You're like, oh, Nintendo does things like that.
What's that?
It sticks out.
Yeah. Well, that was our hope. It's either going to crash and burn or do really well. It's not much middle ground with a game like that if you do a decent job.
Did you already have the relationships with Nintendo? Did you know people over there, or was this something you got to...
No.
Yeah,
you know what's crazy? We weren't even authorized developers at the time. We had, those little flash ROM cards you can get? I can't remember what they're called now. They're not illegal, but if you start downloading ROMs and put them on there, then that's illegal. So the ROM itself isn't illegal, but you can kind of hack it as a development thing. So we would make the game, like create an NDS file or whatever it was at the time, burn that to the cartridge, put it in our regular DS and play it. So that's how we made the game to begin with.
Nintendo loving this story, right?
I know, sorry, but it is what it is. And then we became official. We teamed up with Gamecock. We went to lots of publishers, including Konami.
Yeah.
Even proposed the idea of like, hey, you can make this a survival horror game. A Silent Hill game if you want. And the famous response I got from that is, no, we wouldn't trust Silent Hill to a team like you.
Ooh.
Wow. Man.
Ooh.
I'll get you. So that's fun.
That's karma on display right there,
that.
man.
Yeah. I won't name who said that, but wow, dude. Anyway, so and we eventually, and this was at GDC actually. Wow, we got GDC is coming up this week. So yeah, GDC. Gosh, what year is it? So 11 years ago? GDC 11 years ago. We're going around GDC trying to get Dementium, find a home for it. We had a few different meetings, ended up coming back home to Austin, and then Gamecock, who's in Austin, were like, we met up with them, and I remember we were going out for dinner at a Mexican restaurant with my family one night, and they called me up and said, yeah, we want to do it. And I was like, awesome. And my response was, really? I didn't think it would work, because we said, hey, give us a bunch of money to make this game on the DS. And they're like, yeah, let's do it.
That's awesome.
Anyway, it was super exciting.
Was that Mike Wilson or was that Harry?
Actually, it was Tim, the producer.
Okay,
yeah.
Very cool.
So I did meet with Harry and Mike, yes, but it was actually Tim who called me.
The Mushroom Men was coming up around that same time as well.
Uh-huh.
Did you do any stuff with those guys? I feel like I met everybody.
That was Red Fly, right?
Yes, that's
Red
right,
Fly.
Yeah.
No, I know them, but no, I didn't work with them. No.
Okay, so that was Renegade Kid, and you're not not working with Renegade Kid. You've started a new thing called a TUI, but Renegade Kid did Dementium and Moon and a couple more Dementiums, if I'm not mistaken, right?
We did Dementium 2 and ATV Wild Ride, racing game, Bomb Monkey, Muds, Zeo Drifter, and maybe some other ones. Oh, I've got some logos back here. That's all the ones I think that all the main ones.
That's a good run.
Maybe,
and so that was until 2016, 2015?
Officially, I think it was
2016.
2006. It was the end of 2016, so it was exactly about 10 years. It was 2007 to about 2017. So it was exactly 10 years. And I think total unique games, it was something crazy like 12 or 14.
That's amazing.
Because we included the 3DS versions because they were full-on projects. So yeah, we did. Yeah, it was a lot.
And how big did Renegade Kid grow to?
The biggest was probably when we were doing, let me think now, Dementium 2. That was really awesome because So Gamecock went under, unfortunately, but kind of bought by South Peak,
Right.
who's up in Dallas, or was up in Dallas. So they got the rights to all their games, which was a bittersweet, strange thing. But they were, for a few different reasons, they kind of owed us some money because of back things and a few other weird stuff, kind of created the situation where we were being really adamant, like, hey, you owe us this money and blah, 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 lots of stuff going on. And we were like, well, and also we want to make Dementium 2. So they're like, all right, how about when we give you a really juicy budget for Dementium 2? Will that quiet you? We're like, yeah. It was like, at the time, it was about $500,000.
That's amazing.
Which to us was huge. It was like, oh my gosh, that is so much money to like the handful of guys, making like I said, still a DS game. So we were like, that was the biggest budget we've ever had, actually, up to that point. And since then, it was like, oh my gosh. So we were like, yes, we'll take that. So we actually got to team up, staff up the team. I'm trying to think. I think we got close to double digits, like 9 or 10-ish people, not full time, but we kind of scale with whatever's needed. We're very, very careful. Like we only hire what we need, and we're very upfront. Like we're going to hire you for 3 months to do this. Is that cool? Yes, great. Let's go. So there's no one's like laid off. No one's surprised. Like catch later. We're like very upfront. Like this is what we need. Are you willing to do that? Because you want everyone to be happy. You don't want everyone to be upset with with this. It's all supposed to be good and fun and happy. Anyway, so we're very legit about that. And yeah, so that's about the biggest we got, and that was great. And Dementium 2 is, in my opinion, I love it. It's got so much in there. The story, the audio, the graphics, the whole. The weapons.
That was a 3DS game, or was that on the
That was DS. Still DS.
Still DS. Amazing.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's fantastic.
Such a great game. Really, it was super fun. We hired some incredible people, and it shows in the game.
So what happened then? Because you've gone off and you run a TUI now. Why not continue on with Renegade Kid?
It was a tricky decision. It's not a clean. There isn't a clean answer. Me and Greg are still great friends, so there's no weird emotional fallout or divorce or whatever. It was getting to the point where financially it was quite challenging. And we were trying to always run kind of two games, right? Like a 3D game and a 2D game. And then one would do well and the other one wouldn't, and that would help that one, and then vice versa. And it was tough. So it just, the writing was on the wall, I think, for a while. And we were able to get away with that scrappiness on the DS, on the 3DS, but we're like, this era is going to be over soon. And sure, there's mobile, but that's a whole other beast. And I'm happy to dabble in there. It's very exciting as well. But, our meat and potatoes are the consoles, are the stuff, especially Nintendo and so on. Like other things are coming down the pipe. What we need to adapt, or we're going to die. What we're going to do, and we're like, well, unfortunately, the best thing is to probably end this. And I still have the fire to continue basically what I've always been doing, but without the overhead, the extra overhead,
right?
Basically, the extra team members, so I can be a lot more lean and focused. So, and then Greg, felt the same way. So we're like, all right, let's do it. It sucked. It was not fun to make that decision. But
I mean, companies are fragile things, and they have to evolve on a constant basis. And you have doors closed and new ones open up. Now, at TUI, then is it just you? Is it just you putting all of this stuff together?
Well, I'm the only kind of full-time person, and then we have contractors that I work with. So right now, I'm working with Matthew Gambrell, who's an amazing programmer who did the programming for Mutant Mudds, Zeo Drifter, Chicken Wiggle. So, I'm continuing to work with him on some projects. And then Phil Elder is another amazing programmer I'm working with on kind of more Unity 3D stuff. So we did, I guess our first game together officially was Totes the Goat, moving that over to the Switch. Right. I worked with someone else to do the mobile version, but we worked together to get onto the Switch, which is a great kind of, launching way to kind of get us working together to do that. And now we're working together on Soccer Slammers for the Switch, which is an awesome arcade soccer game, which will be out in time for the World Cup, which is kick-ass, and Treasure Knots.
That's awesome.
So we have a few things going on, and then we'll just kind of hire, extra people to fill in the gaps where need be. So it's very, very lean, very tight.
You're still making 3DS games, and you've shipped a bunch of 3DS.
No more 3DS. 3DS is done.
So now you're full on Switch.
Chicken Wiggle was the last one.
And mobile.
Yep.
Switch and mobile, pretty much.
Switch, mobile, and we will be including PS4, potentially Xbox One, and then whatever else
And
comes along.
PC, I guess. So everything.
Down the road. Sometimes we've done PC. I don't. Yes, yeah, that will be included for some future, at least one future thing that I know of.
That's
yes.
wild. And so now, is that a kind of a common thing right now with indie developers to scale up for a few months to do the contract work and ship these titles and stuff, and then scale down, scale up, scale down, kind of thing? Is that kind of normal right now for you?
I can't speak for other people, but that's the way that's the only way I know how to work. I mean, because at the beginning of a project, you don't need many minds.
Yeah.
You just need one or two key minds to figure it out. And if you have the extra minds, it just clouds the other minds. It's like, I'm sorry, but please go away.
Yeah.
Let us do our thing, because it's game design, and potentially technology and whatever else the whole point of the game is. Whatever it is, get those people in a room, figure it out. Well, not in a room, but virtually, but whatever, and get it figured out. And then when you need the other people, you bring them on when they're needed, kind of thing. So that's the way I like to work. So yes, it's very accordion. It's very small and then very big and then very small again. And that's why we see layoffs, I think. I mean, I think that's why we see layoffs, is because that's just a natural way of creating anything, whether it be a story, a comic book, a movie, a book, or a game, whatever. It has to start small, and then you get everyone there to finish it off. And then you're back to
I mean, if you look at movies and television, which I think are the most mature form of getting an army together to build something creatively, that's exactly how they do it. And there's more protections, though, and there's more sharing of those folks. Like it's a
true, which is really cool.
Which is cool in the movie and TV business. And in the video game business, I think that it needs to mature a little bit more along that way. I mean, you still see non-competes and things like that just make it all really messy for people.
I think the movie model is perfect, because if you are if you're a hired gun, if you're a freelancer, and whether you be the director or a lighting guy, whatever your role is, if everyone's a hired gun, what I like about that is it keeps everyone honest, and you're hired on your merit. You're hired on how good are you. Yes, I want that same sound guy, that same lighting woman, whatever. I want those people because they're amazing. Rather than that person didn't do so good last time, so I'm not going to be hiring him again. But you don't have to worry about firing them, because the project's over. You go on to a new project, and you kind of you start to create this little team around you, like Peter Jackson's done. I'm sure like Spielberg does, like Ridley Scott does. They have their people that they trust and rely on, and they're hired and rehired as you go. And I love that model. I think it keeps everyone honest.
But those people are also shared on other projects, which is incredibly important.
So once
for
yours
them,
is
right?
Once yours is done, they can go off and do something else. So it's a matter of, I want him. When is he free? Or when is she available? When is she in that? You're like, it keeps everything healthy.
I have a question for you about the way that you look at the world, Jules, because when you look at a game like Mutant Mudds, it's like pixel precision, dude. And I'm wondering if when you look, like you're looking at me, and I'm pixelated because of Skype, but do you just like see the pixels in the world and go, okay, well I can make art around all of this? Like it's so precise.
Right.
Is it just through years and years of practice, or can you break down a scene and go, well, I know exactly how to shade and put all the right pixels in place to make it work?
Yeah, it is. It is practice, like anything, right? Like anything, whether it be kicking a ball or drawing something, it's always practice. Unless you're just lucky and you're like, hey, I can do that. Sweet, good for you. keep on practicing though. It is. It is a lot of practice. I mean, my early pixel stuff, my early just drawings and notepads at school were fairly terrible, but at the time I didn't care. I was like, this is fun. I'm enjoying this. But it is, and my pixel art is definitely. For me, I know that I've got, whether the end result is improved or not, I hope it is. But for me, I know my approach and my confidence in my ability to do stuff has definitely evolved over the time. And exactly. And I can look at something and go, okay, this is how I'm going to make that. Yeah, cool. And I try to look at it from, rather than, you do zoom in and do the pixels real close up, but you really can't look at it from that because it's too close and no one sees it from that, so it's irrelevant. You really want to kind of see it as a whole from standing back a little bit, and whether that's taking into consideration it as a whole, just at a glance, what does it look like as a snapshot? Is it kind of flat? Is it missing some lighting? And lighting can be a key component of making something look good.
Yeah.
If the lighting is wrong, which is, I guess, true for TV and for movies as well, and anything else, but if the lighting is wrong, it just looks wrong. Yeah. And therefore it looks amateur, therefore it looks bad. But if the lighting has been considered, then it can help. But obviously with Max, there is no lighting, so that wasn't really where is he? Well, they got Chicken Wiggle there, I've got Max right here. But so for Max, it's more about proportions and scale and kind of getting the hair to the glasses to the pants to the gun ratio to that place where it looked, good and chunky rather than, it looks weird and thin and strange. So, yeah. So anyway, yes, I guess the short answer would be, yeah, I guess
Is that the game that you can point at? Because for me, that's the game that I can see your prowess, clearly. Like everything is cool in Zeo Drifter, and I like the Qbert sort of homage coming off of Totes the Goats. I like all of that. But when I look at Mutant Muds, I just go, oh man, this is a very clever person that knew how to jump into and out of the frame and scale it up and put the right amount of space between. Like it's a little insidious how difficult that game goes, but
Super Challenges especially. Yeah. Oh my gosh! But Super Challenges.
Is that what you see? Is that the game that you look at that you go, okay, that's where I really nailed it?
I have a really soft spot in my heart for that. It's hard to be completely objective about it because it was truly a passion project that we didn't expect anything. Like we were making games for other people at the time. I think maybe Planet Crashes. I'm not sure, but maybe Face Racers, actually. I think Face Racers for the 3DS. Yes, we had our dev kits when we were doing that, and that was great. And then in the evenings, we'd work on Muds. And it was just one of those things, even though it was really a tremendous amount of work over a fairly long amount of time, it was one of those things that always felt like, I don't know, it sounds super cheesy, but you really felt like it almost being channeled to make it. It's like, this is just a pure pleasure. This doesn't feel like work. This is just good stuff. This is all slotting together the way it should. Yeah. It was a really, really nice project.
Dude, I'm doing that right now with EP Live for me. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like you hit a groove and it's like, this is what you're supposed to be doing,
And we had no expectations. So there was no pressure. We're like, this is have fun. Let's just do something cool. Anyway, so it worked out pretty special. I'm really, really happy with it. Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. Yeah. Tell me about the Switch and your thoughts on this machine that Nintendo has created for us.
I love it. So my history with handhelds, the DS Lite was my most favorite platform ever to date at that time, and then the 3DS came along, and even the initial 3DS hardware was pretty decent, but then especially when the new 3DS, it's not in this room, but the new 3DS, the smaller one came along. Oh, love that. You got the faceplates. I have like a suede kind of faceplate on it and stuff, and it's white and
that's cool.
Good stuff. So that was my favorite console, and then suddenly the Switch came along, and man, that 3DS looks so old, dated now.
The front end on the 3DS is especially excruciating, isn't it? It's so slow.
Oh my gosh!
I know the Switch is so streamlined and slick, and
it's so slick. I know exactly. It's a beautiful thing, and I even like the way the Joy-Cons kind of come off and do that. It just feels super comfy in the grip and that. It just everything about it. The screen's nice. Amazing games on there. I do think they need to improve the eShop. Not only for me as a developer, but I think for the the buyers, the players as well. It's not a great layout so far, but the games and the device is. I'm looking at it right there. That's what I'm looking right there. That's my Switch. It's pretty sweet, man. I like it a lot.
Did you call that, or were you a little bit? Let's wait and see. I mean, when Nintendo kind of released the first videos, did you go,
I was convinced as soon as I saw that 3-minute video. Which is one of the best, probably Nintendo ads they've ever made. I was like, that is pitch perfect. Like the people that are in the video, not only are they just pretty people, but they're of the age that everyone wants to be. If you're younger than them, you want to be them. If you're older than them, you want to be them. Everyone wants to be them. You know what I mean? Like that was so clever. That's just like the perfect age, doing the perfect things in a very cool way.
Meanwhile, they were all starving actors that could barely afford to buy a Switch, but they...
No, totally. But no, I loved it. As soon as I saw that, I was definitely like hooked. I was like, that's good stuff. And then Zelda, you're like, oh my gosh, what a milestone to not only do that platform, which is, let's face it, what the Wii U should have been, right? The Switch is what the Wii U should have been. But when they pull off the Switch the way they did in such a elegant way, and then freaking Zelda comes out, you almost forget it was a Wii U game. I mean, what a milestone to have Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and the Switch at the same time. Wow. Yeah. That's pretty special.
It's so solid that it feels. Clearly, it's a huge success, but it feels like it's like this aha. Like, of course, this is what people want. Yeah. Do you feel like the rest of the business is going to be offering similar products? Do they have a choice, but to go down that road, or has Nintendo carved out a unique position for themselves?
Yeah, I think they've done a unique thing here. I'd be surprised if Sony tried to copy them, and I don't think Microsoft will either. I'd be very surprised if they try to copy it because you can't pull it off.
You know they've copied Nintendo many times in the past.
Yeah. No, for sure. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think they'll try and innovate in different ways. I think.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I can't see Sony and Microsoft trying to do their own Switch because I think it'd be a sad, pathetic, pale version of what this is.
Yeah.
Like Nintendo has nailed it so hard, done it so right. There's not much room for improvement that Nintendo probably won't even just do themselves eventually.
Right.
So, yeah, I think Microsoft will just be like, yeah, let's just 4K, blah, whatever, make it this beast of a machine, and Sony will probably do something.
There are rumors
different, maybe
that Nintendo is doing some changes and some improvements to the current existing Switch. Got any info on that?
No, I don't, sadly. And even if I did, I couldn't tell you, but I don't. But a mini Switch would be pretty neat. I mean, I don't know how that would work because that's tricky because the Joy-Cons are already kind of tiny enough. But the portability of it is it's only kind of one of the only kind of tricky things about it because you have to put it in a case really or not worry about scratching the screen. And that was what was nice about the 3DS is the clamshell design. So. And that was what I was always worried about with my Vita. Yeah. It's just that beautiful screen. I don't want to get scratched and stuff. So it's kind of
25 years ago, you were making games with pixels. You're still making games with pixels.
Yeah.
Would you predict that?
No.
And why do they endure? Why are they still cool? And like I just because I have my own thoughts on that, but why?
Right? Yeah. Well, what's weird is like I lived through the phase of the N64 PS1 era where pixels were not cool.
Yes, we were not to speak of pixels.
They were done with, and I was like, oh. So I was like, that area is dead, it's gone. And then when they started coming back, I was like, oh, sweet, because that's what I love. And I mean, I love everything. I love 3D as well, but I have a soft spot for pixel stuff. So that was nice when it came back. And I guess. Because I guess they became nostalgic, right? Whereas, so I think there's part of that. But I think it's become hopefully an art style. Yeah. I like to think that rather than, that's just cheap and easy or whatever some, naysayers may say. For me, I look at it as a style, like something like Flint Hook, for example, or Owlboy, for example. Yes. Two exceptional games that everyone should buy on whatever platform you can get them on. But they're both on the Switch. Which I have them on, and they're awesome. And I can imagine those with more, non-pixel art styles, whatever you want to call it, more hand-painted. That'd be great. But I like them more because they're pixel art, and I can't really explain why. I just like pixel art, I guess. I like to see the pixels because, when you look at, I got a mug here, like, Chicken Wiggle, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but, well, let's look at Wiggle's eyes, for example. Can you see his eyes there? It's freaking 4 pixels, like you got 1 pixel for his pupil and then 3 other pixels for the rest of his white. And that has a certain charm to it, which you couldn't get any other way, and I like that. I like that it has that.
It really hit me when I played the NES Classic Edition games and how beautiful they were. Like, because I had... That was right around the time when I was focused on school more than I was focused on games. So I got into the NES a little bit later, so I hadn't played all of those games. And when I played them on the NES Classic, and they're not breathtaking, they're not SNES, but the pixel art was so clever and so ingenious, And
because 1 pixel is the difference between awesome and wow, what is that? Yeah, it is. It's tough. Yeah, they were masters, man. That's what's kind of awesome and sad at the same time as you look at, like, especially the Capcom stuff on the Super Nintendo and the 16-bit era. Oh my gosh, I mean, almost like some of the pinnacle games they did at their time, and things like Demon's Crest, which artistically, and like Mickey Mouse Magical Quest on the Super Nintendo, just beautiful, beautiful
Castle
pixel
of
art.
Illusion on the Sega Genesis.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
Phenomenal work.
Amazing stuff. And I mean, and they were all under the same memory constraints that the Bubsy team were under, or some other game, some lesser game. They had the same constraints. Everyone had the exact same constraints as far as how much memory do you have, what can you get this thing to do, regardless of cartridge size. You can only display so much stuff on screen at once. So Capcom and Konami at the time, just masters of their craft, and the stuff they did was truly inspiring. To me and everyone I was working with was like, how do we do that? It was just truly amazing.
Have you ever heard from a developer that you admire that you may be a fan of that has found one of your games and said something super nice to you? Has that moment happened for you? Like I
don't think so.
I'm envisioning Miyamoto playing Mutant Mudds going, this is very good.
This is very good. I don't. No, I don't think so.
Well, it will happen.
I have met Mr. Miyamoto, which was very nice, but he didn't know who I was. I was just some annoying English guy, I'm sure. And I remember, I completely blew my opportunity as well. Like, this was like way back, an old E3 when the N64 was the thing. And I remember I may have had a few beers, maybe. And I was like telling him such an idiot, such a young idiot at the time. I was telling him the problem I had with the N64 version of Mario Kart versus the SNES version. Yeah. Like, because you could do the skids and the stuff on the SNES.
Thank you. The SNES version is better than the N64 version. I'm way with you, buddy.
Totally. Yeah. And the courses are so long and boring on the N64. It's such a dull game. And that's what I was telling Miyamoto. That's what I used my time.
Well, I got you beat. I met Spielberg at E3, and I said, I'm a big fan of your work. Is what I said. Cool. I also like oxygen, and food keeps me alive.
Yes. He's like, yes, thank you, Captain Obvious.
It's like jettison an awesome opportunity to meet one of my heroes.
Oh, me too, man. Spielberg to me is incredible. Him and Ridley Scott, incredible. Yeah. But yeah, Spielberg especially.
Well, you've got I wanted to we've got a little more show to get moving on to, but you and I can clearly keep doing this, and we're going to do it again.
Yes.
Okay, I'll reach out to you to be on the show again soon. Yeah, but you've got a Kickstarter that is running right now. We talked about it on EP Live a little bit about it. Have you done a Kickstarter before? Is this one of your first times doing this, or have you done it before?
We did do one at Renegade Kid for Colt County, a survival horror game, and that wasn't successful, unfortunately. So this is, and I'd kind of sworn that I was never going to do Kickstarter again, because that was rough, man.
Dude, everybody I talked to that has done one of these things has said the exact same thing. Even if they've succeeded, it's like a whole new career, right? To be able to pull this off.
Yeah. I remember the first day we launched the Colt County one, I was, because you have to click the button to make it go live. You can't schedule it. You have to actually physically click the button to make it go live. I was so anxious that morning. I was jumping out of my skin. I had to walk around the block. I was so, it was a horrible feeling. It was so rough.
And so you went through it again.
I went through it again. But this time, exactly. But like we talked about before, like with bad bosses and so on, I tried to learn from the mistakes, from what failed, and I tried to, and you know what I do? I feel so much better this time, even though we still haven't hit the goal yet. I touch wood. I'm hopeful that we will. It's looking promising. We're halfway through the time, and 74%. I actually had that window up earlier. Where is it? 74%. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
So that's pretty good. Thanks, man. But anyway, so we put a lot of effort into getting the page to look good, to make the video, and so I feel good that it's like, all right, we've done a pretty good job. Hopefully now the ball is in other people's court, and I've done everything we can possibly do, humanly do, to make it appealing and attractive and communicate what it is. And if people don't want it,
what's the goal?
Do, great.
Like, what do you want to do with this? What's the game? What are you trying to do?
So the basic premise is, we released Chicken Wiggle on the 3DS last year in August, and I was convinced it was going to do great because it was originally going to be a 3-month game that we were going to spend time on making it. It ended up into being a 16-month game. So it's a much bigger, more ambitious game because we just let it kind of go crazy because we wanted it to be special and amazing, and I think it did turn out that way. I'm really, really proud of it. And we thought, great, 3DS, huge audience, let's release it onto that. But I don't think anyone could have predicted the effect the Switch had on the 3DS, as far as the eShop, at least anyway. Yes. I'm sure Nintendo's first-party 3DS games are selling fine, but for us, it was like 3DS was dropped like a bad cold. It was like,
I'll tell you that 3DS eShop is especially dated. Like it because a lot of what's new just feels like, well, that was new 2 years ago. Why is that still in the what's new thing? You know?
Yeah. So everyone was saying, "Hey, I wish this was on Switch. I wish this was on Switch." And we're like, "Oh, well, that's great. Thanks." It's not. So anyway, so then we're like, "All right, can we bring this to Switch? What can we do?" And we're like, "Well," and it's hard, right? Because you release the game, it doesn't sell particularly well. So you're like, is it because of the game? Is it because of the market? Is it because of something else? It's called Chicken Wiggle. It's a little silly. Not that silly games haven't sold very well, but it's you start to second guess yourself and think, well, why didn't it sell well? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try and have confidence and faith in ourselves that we did a great job. We did a great game. And I accept that not every game is for every person, and that's okay. Yeah. So, I think if you try and chase that, then good luck. It's not going to happen. So, I think it's good for the people who like this type of game. And so, all right, what can we do to bring it over to the Switch? I think we really need to make it look special. We can't just do another pixel game. We've already done Mutant Mudds, which is fantastic. I love the trilogy that we released on the Switch. We did Zero Drifter. That's fantastic on the Switch. Great. That's a lot of pixels. What can we do with Chicken Wiggle? And I have a really good friend of mine, Michael Veroni. He's a very talented artist. And I was like, hey, I sent him a screenshot of Chicken Wiggle, the pixel game. And I was like, hey, can you paint this in 720p and make it look awesome? And he's like, sure. So he did that, sent it back. I'm like, oh my gosh, it looks so good, dude. I was like, so that kind of convinced me. He's like, all right, yeah, let's. I was like, hey, are you going to be available? He's like, yeah, sure. So that's what, and a game like, and I have it over there, the Wonder Boy game for the Switch and other platforms.
Yeah.
You can switch between the NES and the new updated artwork, and that really blew me away when I played that game, because you're playing the beautiful artwork, you're like, surely they changed something, because this is feeling way too new and awesome. But you switch to the NES, you're like, wow, this is running on the exact same bones as the NES game. This is the NES game with pretty artwork.
That's great.
Wow. Anyway, so that's what inspired us. So then with Chicken Wiggle, let's just do that. Let's just make it look amazing. That will fit the Switch and give people a reason to do it, but we'll need money to do that. So let's do a Kickstarter, with a reasonable goal. $30,000, a reasonable goal, I think, for development, considering 50% of it goes to taxes and other things. Anyway, so that's kind of what birthed it.
You have this game, it's
Switch.
Made. And it's not just a platformer. You can also, there's a full-on editor in there, and you can build your own levels and share them, which is still, it's like Super Mario Maker before they announce it for this machine, which it's perfect for. So you've got a window to get this thing out there for people. How quick?
Yeah, and it's nice and different, because you can create your own game rules, whether it be rescue your friend at the end of the level, whether it be collect all the things or kill all the enemies or whatever. There's lots of different game rules that you can create yourself, and lots of different art themes you can choose from. So it's got quite flexible.
That's awesome. And how long will it take to do this? I'm convinced you're going to get all the money you need. How long will it take to actually do it and ship it?
To be safe, we're putting the date down as December this year as the release date. I between you and me, I think it's going to come out before then, but we're putting that just to be safe.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, listen, Jools Watsham is an incredible guy, as you have just discovered by watching us talk here. I loved having you on, my friend, and I definitely...
Yeah, man, it's awesome to see you again, man.
I will reach out again, okay? Maybe post E3 when we've got a bunch of the Nintendo news and announcements and the other stuff. I'd
awesome.
love to get your perspective on all that.
Cool.
And we'll also hear how Chicken Wiggle is coming along and some of the other stuff you're cooking.
Perfect.
But keep up the great work, and keep that enthusiasm and that love. It inspires everybody around you, brother. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
All right.
Good to see you, man.
You take care. Right now, let's take a look at my review of Ni no Kuni 2.
Once upon a time, there was a world torn by endless war, and peace was a distant dream.
Now, if you see some giant bags under my eyes, it's because I've been playing Ni no Kuni II Revenant Kingdom on my PlayStation 4 Pro, and I have been blown away by the visuals in this game. And I don't mean to undermine the gameplay or anything else, but the beautiful, sumptuous graphics of this title will knock your socks off. Now, obviously, it picks up the baton from the first Ni no Kuni game, Wrath of the White Witch, which I never played. That was something that Ben and Jose reviewed. I did dabble in it a little bit just to check it out. I was, suitably impressed by the Studio Ghibli-inspired visuals. It was a collaboration back then. We know that Studio Ghibli isn't involved as a brand with Ni no Kuni 2, but there are team members that worked on the first game and have worked on many Studio Ghibli projects that are involved in this title. But also what's happened is graphical fidelity has increased so much from the PS3 and Xbox 360 era to what we have now with and what is capable on the PS4 Pro. It's really cool. And the concept for this game, I think, lends itself to lots of diversity and lots of different styles and lots of ideas, crazy character designs. Basically, it comes down to it's a war between the mice and the cats. And you play the new cat king, who happens to be a small fry, and you're threatened right away by all of these different rat-fink mice that are trying to topple you and take your kingdom away from you. But what happens is suddenly out of nowhere, this helping force arrives named Roland, who comes from a different dimension, a completely different reality, and he is just slammed into this world of cat and mice fighting each other with giant monsters just walking around open fields and stuff like that.
We have to leave.
He's got a handgun, and he starts shooting people right away, and that just felt weird to have like a 9mm in the middle of this fantasy world. But somehow you get over it, because I think what the developers were really trying to do with this game is blend a lot of projectile combat and a lot of hack and slash type combat. This is very different from the combat style of the previous game. So it has a kind of a twitchy hack slash and zip all over the place kind of game style, which is great. And that's kind of the, one of the core tenets of the game, because you're going to do a lot of combat, obviously, to grind through this title and gain all kinds of experience points, and you pick up all kinds of bladed weapons and magic wands and staves and axes, depending on the characters that you're adding to your party. And so you get to use them in real time, which is kind of fun. It's not, you're not going to mistake this for a God of War game or a Devil May Cry or anything like that, but it is still solid and enjoyable and a nice cornerstone of the game design. But that's not all. There are lots of different systems at work in this title. You've got that real-time strategy type of experience. You've got the exploring sort of areas from the third camera perspective mode. And of course, there's all the combat when you're actually fighting in real time, and that you get the hack and slash with all these incredible magic effects. And the magic is implemented by these things called higgledies, which are actually very charming. They're kind of like Pokemon a bit. They call them phenomena in the game, and they're kind of tied to earth, wind, and fire kind of elements. And so fire effects and wind effects and heal effects and things like that. But the flourishes are beautiful, and you can pull them off by pressing the R2 button and calling special effects. And then you obviously augment and find all kinds of goodies that will heal you, replenish your magic, and all that kind of stuff. A lot of traditional routine type things that we see in JRPGs, but all of these systems working together is really solid. It actually does get kind of heavy and emotional. The beginning of this game is like, what? They did that right away? And I'm not going to spoil it, but it was shocking. Stakes are high right from the get-go, and I appreciated all that. And the one thing that I will say is that there's a couple things that bother me. I would say there's three key things that bother me. There is quite a bit of voice work in here, and I appreciated it, and I liked it. I liked the cut sequences, but there's also a tremendous amount of story that's read, that you're sort of flipping through pages of information between characters and dialogue between characters. And I felt like that was kind of it sort of hobbled the pace a little bit, because there is a lot of repeated, concepts and ideas in here. You're just kind of reintroduced to concepts over and over again, and it sort of artificially lengthens the experience, because it just sort of bogs everything down. I would have loved this title if everything had been voiced. I also think that when we go to the overworld, sort of the chibi versions, the big head versions of the characters, it doesn't look as good as the rest of the experience. It makes it look like a dated experience. And we've been spoiled by massive experiences like Skyrim and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and it's hard not to, it's hard to scrub those out of my mind and not wish for more from this title. But clearly Bandai Namco spent a lot of money to make this game look beautiful and sound gorgeous. The music is exquisite in this title as well.
Come on.
There are tremendously cool surprises throughout this. The story and the environments and the characters are all wonderful. I was taken in by it. The only other quibble that I would say about this title is that I never felt really threatened. I never felt like the difficulty was too much to manage, even though there was a lot of interaction and a lot of stuff to deal with all my characters and all the higgledies and lots of enemies to battle. It felt like you could spam through a lot of these battles, but that didn't take away from the enjoyment. And there are areas where you definitely do get a challenge, but for the most part, it felt like I could face any size of goon and take them down. And it was, don't get me wrong, very fun to take them down. Listen, I think this game is a blast, and it's beautiful, and if you have got a JRPG itch, this is going to, scratch that itch in a big way, and you are going to be very entertained and impressed by the production quality of this title. I'm going to give Ni no Kuni II Revenant Kingdom an 8 out of 10. Seriously beautiful game, and I actually spoke with the brand manager behind Kuni II last week on EP Live, and we had a great interview about the game. It comes out this Friday, I believe, and JRPG fans, it's going to put a big smile on your face. There's a little bit of RTS-style gameplay in Ni no Kuni 2, but let's talk about a classic RTS right now. I've been a real-time strategy fan for as long as I can remember. It was a bit of a weird, genre to get to, coming from a console sort of world like I had been. But Supreme Commander 2 was supposed to be a much more accessible game. It was very easy to play. It had some, over-the-top kind of cheeseball cutscenes and stuff like that. But the mechanics were cool. And the thing that I've always dug about Supreme Commander is that you feel like you're in charge of really huge, epic battles. Sometimes it really bothers me where there's this artificial ceiling when I'm playing RTS games where I just can't scale back enough, or I can't pull back enough to see everything. With Supreme Commander 1 and 2, that is not an issue. Lots of great units. You got air and land and sea units. There's lots of great explosions and stuff. It suffered a little bit in its console iteration, but you can also play this on the PC, which is, I think, where you should probably hunt to find this. We don't get too many RTS games these days. I think that the market got a little saturated over time, but Supreme Commander 1 and Supreme Commander 2 are worth the pickup. Supreme Commander 1 was obviously a huge hit, so I can't really qualify that as a buried treasure, but I think that Supreme Commander 2 absolutely is, and man, I miss this series. I would love somebody to pick up the reins and bring this back again. Until that time, Supreme Commander 2 is a buried treasure. All right, that's Supreme Commander 2. Man, that takes me back. I miss you, Chris Taylor. However you're doing out there, I think he's working at Wargaming right now on some tank stuff or something. It is time for Let's Play and Chat. My buddy Blake is going to come out here and join me, and we are going to be playing a game called Wulverblade. We were thinking about doing something else, but I just checked it out, and it was too complicated. I was just not going to be able to figure it out. You know the deal with Let's Play and Chat. It is a 15 minutes on the clock-ish, and you guys ask us questions, throw us some comments or whatever, and we'll do our best to answer them. And we're also starting to post the archive of these Let's Play and Chat segments, so if you've got comments or things that you want to put into, underneath in the comments below, do that. We're reading all of this stuff, and it becomes part of the conversation. But let's take a look at Wulverblade. I'm going to turn the music off first, so you can hear me a little bit better. And let's go into the campaign. I've heard that this is a very bloody experience, and I'm looking forward to checking this out a little bit. Oh, the cursor's on the screen. Okay, cool. So there we go. Let's take a look at Wulverblade. First thing, I think it's kind of like a hack and slash, final fight type experience, but we're Viking warriors. So I'll be the little guy with the sword and the shield. Let's go.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, let's do this. Blake is here.
I've never heard of this game, Vic.
Yeah, it's an indie title, one of the Nindies on this machine, and it's got a different kind of art style. I think a little bit Flash game oriented, sort of like Mark of the Ninja, right. Like the Clay Entertainment type guys.
Which we mentioned earlier in the show.
Yeah, I'd like to do games like that. Very popular with smaller teams and developers that are building cool concepts that they don't have the team size or the budget to build massive 3D things for us. Probably develop with Unity, because I think Unity and the Flash art work really well together. But super cool, fascinating discussions talking with people that are on the inside of all of these industries that I love, and I think many of you love out there. Hopefully you do if you're watching EP today. So I'm going to skip the story. I don't quite know what's happening in the story.
The story's not important.
I won't recount it to you, but let's go see what the combat is like in this game. And if there's any comments or questions from before.
Yeah, I wrote some of them down because I saw some good ones.
Okay.
And I didn't want to forget them. So the first one I wrote down is from Clayton Blair.
Oh, okay. How's it going, Clayton?
Hi, Clayton. Wants to know book and toy store recommendations in the Vancouver area.
Oh, you have to go to Toy Traders. It's in Langley. It's my favorite toy store in the Vancouver, in the Lower Mainland. It's massive. and it has some of the best setups and displays that you'll have ever seen in any toy store anywhere. We've shot in there many times, and it's fantastic. Really love that store.
Where specifically is it, Vic?
It's in Langley, which is, a good 45 minutes from downtown, but it's worth the trip. You are not going to forget your time at Toy Traders for toys. There's also, some great comic stores, Tasmania Comics on Hastings, and just before you get into Burnaby is really cool. The Eternal Golden Age Collectibles downtown Vancouver is great. If you're on the west side, I love the comic shop. I grew up at the comic shop. And in terms of bookstores, we've got it's like the big bookstores, like Chapters and stuff.
If you want used bookstores, there's an awesome used bookstore on Richards Street called McLean's Books.
Okay.
And if you want like not comics but just regular books, that's the place to go.
Yeah.
It's called McLean's Books. It's on Richards near Waterfront.
Yeah, but definitely try to make the journey out to Toy Traders. You will not be disappointed.
Okay, I have a question from the Ren.
Okay.
I was asking about because we mentioned the Atari box earlier.
Yes.
Like Atari hasn't really said this, but the Ren wants to know: is it going to play new games like Flash-based kind of Ouya type new games, or new games like AAA kind of new games?
I think it's going to be an indie type console, but it won't be. The biggest problem with Ouya is that they tied themselves to Android and to the mobile kind of thing, and they did it, I think, when the fatigue started to set in with the people that would give a crap to buy a machine like that, people like me. And I don't mean to dog mobile, because there's still lots of good mobile games. I'm actually playing a great one from HAL Labs, the people that make us the Kirby games, and Box Boy. There's a new... it's called Part-Time UFO, and it's really, really cool. You pay for it, and there's no DLC or anything. I think you just pay once, and then you can work your way through the game. I'll probably try to get a review together for you guys, but there are good titles out there. I mentioned Grid earlier in the show. But Atari can't make that mistake. They can't tie it to mobile stuff. It's got to be to... in the Nindy sphere and the Steam sort of indie stuff, there's great indie stuff on the PlayStation and the Xbox, but they also have to come out with their own unique relationships and their own unique experiences that you can't get anywhere else. Otherwise, this thing's going to die on the vine.
But do you think it's going to play like, FIFA 18 or
No.
Battlefront 2 type games?
Absolutely not.
Right.
I mean, it could, probably, if the developers wanted to build to the specs, but it won't have the architecture that's exactly the same as anything else. It can't. And so that becomes an investment either from Atari to bring people over to their machine, or it's too much of a risk for publishers out there at this stage. But if people really, go crazy for it, all bets are off. I think that's highly unlikely. I'm excited because I dig cool new hardware and I have a fondness for Atari, but I don't think that's everybody.
I have a comment here from CL Magnus.
Yes.
It says, "Hey Vic, I've been following your work since I came to Canada 14 years ago. Thank you for the great work."
Oh, dude, thank you. That's very, very kind. Where did you come from in the world that you came to Canada 14 years ago?
Magnus, that's maybe Northern Europe somewhere?
Could be, yeah.
Okay. If you guys have any comments, just text them and I'll relay them to Vic.
This is sweet.
Did we say the URL for Jules' game?
No, I think we didn't. Maybe we can type it in, but
the game he was talking about at the end is Chicken Wiggle what is it called? Chicken Wiggle Workshop.
Yeah,
for the
Chicken.
Switch.
I think if you Google Chicken Wiggle
just
and
Google that.
Kickstarter, you'll find it.
Yeah.
And you should follow Jules if you're a fan of EP and you're a fan of people that are into this stuff and generally have a lot of great insight and positivity about the medium that is video games. I think you'll enjoy Jules's commentary and his tweets and his work, quite frankly.
Okay, I have a really big one here.
Okay.
It's from Jordan Cunningham.
Yes.
Question: Hey, what's
Yeah.
your favorite pizza place in Vancouver?
I love pizza, but I don't eat it too often because too much pizza, I've discovered, and I don't know if anybody else knows this, too much pizza
It makes you fat.
yeah, it's not too great for you. and especially if you've got a sedentary lifestyle where you're sitting for hours at a time playing video games or watching movies, can't really eat too much pizza. But there are some, I like pizza that it's they're like there's Stretch Pizza down in Gastown. They've done a pretty cool job. I like kind of boutique pizza,
Yeah,
where
you like fancy restaurant sit down kind of pizza.
I mean, I love fresh slice and pizza's good. It's really hard to make bad pizza. If you make
Unless
a
you're
vegetarian,
Domino's,
if you make a good vegetarian pizza, because I'm vegetarian, I eat some seafood, but I mostly just eat the veggies. It's pretty hard to screw that up, right? You put a bunch of fresh vegetables and a tomato sauce and cheese.
Cheese and
Yeah. But I like it when, there's the place that I found on Hastings Street in East Vancouver. I forget the name of it, but it's like this authentic from Tuscany type of pizza joint.
It's in the Hastings Sunrise area, right?
Yeah, it's really good. So I don't have a joint that I love, but I'll tell you, my daughter loves cheese pizza. My daughter eats a lot of kids.
I think a lot of little
cheese
kids
and bread.
they just want the cheese pizza. Yeah.
And so she loves when we go to Fresh Slice, and it's a very cheap date for me. Okay, $2 for your slice of pizza. Okay.
Well, I live on Commercial Drive.
Yeah.
And Commercial Drive has about 20 pizza by the slice places within about a half a mile radius.
Oh yeah.
So, and they're all pretty good. The best one I think is Mediterranean Fire Pizza.
That is an excellent one.
It has
yes.
a big red awning. It's right next to one.
That's
with
a fancy sit-down one.
No, it's not. It's not. It's a pizza by the slice place.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But they do all kinds of weird pizza, like eggplant pizza and seafood pizza.
I'm thinking of there's another Fire Pizza.
You're thinking of
Firewood.
It's an Italian restaurant.
Yeah.
I know the one you mean.
That's very good.
Mediterranean Fire Pizza has like a red awning. It's really good.
Cool.
It's near the Starbucks.
Awesome.
So yeah. Bread makes you fat.
Emilio Lopez. Wow, super long loading times for a 2D scrolling experience like this.
Will there ever be a classic Electric Playground DVD set? Yeah, DVD's not a thing anymore, so probably not.
Well, we never did it because of the amount of time it would take to go off and do that correctly. And it's just like a whole new business that I don't really know how to do, and I don't want to get stuck with making a bunch of sets that don't sell, or being in a position where we've made a certain amount and there are more people than we anticipate want the thing, and then you're dealing with an inventory and trying to ship stuff. And I mean, I love the idea of it, but it sounds more complicated than we can kind of figure out.
I mean, it's all on YouTube now anyway, right? I mean,
well, I would like to be able to say, look, here's behind the scenes stuff, and here's some extra content or commentary and stuff like that. I would like to make a special thing like that, but it would require investment and I think a tremendous amount of time. And that's really kind of the position that we're in right now. It's like we can focus on building new stuff, which is what we're doing. With our regular interviews and reviews and stuff like that. Or we could focus on trying to find a whole bunch of new distribution for us. Or we could focus on trying to post all of our old material, or find a way to package our old material so that people could buy it or whatever. And our choice, and it's really my choice, is to try to continue making new things. I wake up every day excited about what's coming up next, and the reason why we were a little bit late starting today, or a little later starting today, is because I went and saw a movie that I'm going to be raving about very soon this morning at a critic screening, and that's extremely exciting for me. And I think that most of you guys watch our content because you want to see the future, or you want to see stuff that's around sort of present topics and games and movies. Are they worth your time right now, or comics or whatever? And so it becomes a real sort of priority. If I said, look, we're going to package all of our old content and that's what we're going to focus on, it would take a tremendous amount of time and resource. I am always, putting out feelers to see if there's some corporate partners that would want to participate in stuff like that, whether it's helping us with, sponsoring the digitization and the sort of curation of all of that archive, which would be great, or sponsoring the new content that we're making, or thinking of finding new homes for us or whatever. I do that when I can, but again, all of that business development stuff makes it way more difficult for me to just sort of sit here and do the content or go outside in the pouring rain and find a covered place and shoot a review for you guys. And I still, that's what I love to do the most, and I think that's why you're watching.
Yeah, if you really want a DVD, you can just download the episodes from YouTube and burn them onto a DVD.
Okay.
If you want to do that, go for it. It's really easy, guys. It'll take like 5 minutes.
I'd prefer they didn't, though.
Yeah.
I'd prefer they
that's true.
didn't. What I prefer you do, if you are a fan of our stuff, is tell as many people as you know to watch some of our old classic stuff.
That's a good point.
That would be great.
Blade Blur just posted the link to the Kickstarter.
Oh, you rock, Blade Blur.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commercial drives where all the hipsters hang out. Yeah, that's why I live there.
Yeah. The Captain Hipster right here.
I only act like a hipster, ironically. So, Vic, who made this game?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I played it once when I bought it. I just wanted to check it out for a few minutes, and I'm playing it again now. And this is the longest that I've played the game, so I don't really know too much about this thing other than it's been on my Switch, and I heard it was fun, and I wanted to go and check it out. It's kind of like a God of War type of experience, fused with Golden Axe, which
I like how he
which is money.
Kind of looks like Braveheart with the blue paint.
Yeah.
I had a question or a comment about a news story earlier today.
Oh, yeah?
That I wanted to mention.
Sure.
We talked about in the news about how Ubisoft is, they beat Vivendi.
Yeah.
And we mentioned how one of the big investors that came in to save them was Tencent.
Yeah.
In their press release that I was reading as I was writing that story right before we went to air, because it broke like literally right before we went to air.
Yeah.
One of the other investors that they mentioned in their press release is the Ontario Teachers Union.
That's right. Yeah.
So all you people in Toronto and other parts of Ontario, if you're in high school or if you're in a public school,
Yeah.
your teacher now partially owns Ubisoft.
Well, they invested. It was part of the huge sort of business development that they have with their Toronto studio out there, because they employ hundreds of people at that studio. And obviously, Ubisoft has had tremendous success in Quebec, and Ontario was doing, through various investment opportunities, doing what it could to attract Ubisoft to their province as well. But it's just great news, man. Like, they're doing what they want to do. They are making the games that they want to make, and they've been carving a very unique path for themselves as a company. And I'm just really happy for them. And also all the employees that we know, everybody that's in development and PR and marketing and all that stuff. Like we know lots and lots of people from UB, lots of fantastic people, and I'm happy for them, because it has been nerve-wracking for some of them, because they didn't know if that ever went through, if they would have the job still,
It felt like every time we went to a Ubisoft event over the last year or two, it was like everyone was kind of like wondering, is this going to be the last one? Is this going to be the last one? So,
not that they would just close up the shop, but there would be some changes. There always
there would
is.
be a huge change in the culture at the company if they did, I think.
Okay.
Okay, bye everyone.
Primarily. Oh, wait, I got one more question, then I'll end it as I do some hacking and slashing here. I know you're primarily a console and handheld gamer, but do you think you'll get back into PC gaming for the exclusives there? Absolutely. The plan is to hook up a PC very soon, and it will live here. I don't know if you guys noticed this. We have a bunch of classic consoles sitting beside me. Definitely want to be doing a little bit more plugging and playing with different things. Primarily focused on the new, but yes, I want to talk about PC stuff. I want to get that VR headset on. You will absolutely see me doing an EP live with the VR headset on, which is going to completely destroy my hair, but I'm going to do it for you people. But that wraps us up for today's episode of EP Live. Thank you so much for joining us. We are taking a break from EP Live for a couple of days. It's spring break, so I'm going to be doing some dad stuff, but the rundown will be back tomorrow, and some more content as well. But EP Live will return very, very soon. I'll keep you posted on all that. But thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this as a live show, you rock for being here and helping us to make a better show because of your contributions and your comments and your questions. If you're watching this in an archive state, thank you so much for finding us. And if you like what you see, there's tons of other content for you to check out, so please do. And if you dig it, hit subscribe, that little bell, and if you're so inclined, that sponsorship button too. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.